Hello, and welcome to the Cyno review.
せーのでもそんなんじゃダメもうそんなんじゃほら心は進化するよもっともっと
That's the only thing that comes to my mind whenever I hear his name. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another character review. Today we are taking a look at Cyno, our new 5-star Electro polearm character, a second Electro polearm. We don't have that many of those, but he is our new 5-star boy. Yes, I am very late, the banner has already changed, but Cyno is a very interesting character. He's also seen a lot of split opinions inside of the community, and he's very interesting, and I needed a lot of time to really practice him and see through what he's able to do and analyze him on my own time. That's why I'm late with this video, and you know, we also have the shorter patch cycles and such, so if this was a normal patch, I would have been pretty much fine on time. But yeah, Cyno has seen a lot of like split opinions in the community of being like, oh, he seems pretty bad, oh, he seems okay and such, right? And because of that, again, I needed a lot of practice. I really wanted to explore all of Cyno's like ways that he works and plays in order to make my final verdict on him. And so, well, my opinion is that Cyno right now sits on the same spot as pre 3.0 Keqing. Keqing got a really big boost with Aggravate, but the good thing about Keqing is that she fitted very well with Collei, especially. She, I think, does fun with DMC, but she really liked Collei. And since Collei was, you know, right now is our only real Dendro support, that benefited Keqing really well. But Cyno, on the other hand, doesn't really like many of the Dendro units. So, like Keqing, while he wants to play Aggravate, he really doesn't have that many good Dendro companions to fit him. As such, I would say that again, he's like pre 3.0 Keqing. Pre 3.0 Keqing wasn't really that good. She had some good teams that she was okay at, but she really didn't shine like she does right now. And such, I guess that as time goes on and we get some more characters into the game, and especially Dendro characters, we'll see Cyno slowly start to creep up on how good he is and see more people interested in using Cyno and playing with him. As such, again, that's my general opinion on him. But you know, you ain't gonna understand any of this until we look at his kit, so why don't we look at his kit to see why Cyno doesn't really fit why Cyno is in this weird position. We're not gonna talk about his auto attacks because they're not really, they don't fit into his kit. The only thing I'll say is that his charge attack is the same animation that like screw attack that 4 stars and some 5 stars have, which is pretty disappointing because many 5-star characters, polearm characters especially, have special charge attack animations, and I would like to see more of those. I actually would have given Cyno Xiao's like claw charge attack, just for aesthetics, of course, but I would say it kind of fits with Cyno, the claw attack that Xiao has, so don't understand why they didn't give him that. So let's immediately go into his skill. So Cyno's skill is a press skill. You don't hold it, you don't do anything. He kind of like floats a bit into the air and then does a thrust forwards and downwards. It deals an okay amount of damage, and you deal damage to all of the enemies that you pass through them. Pretty simple, has a lowish cooldown. It just doesn't deal that much damage compared to somebody like Xiao, which their skills are very similar. They are exactly the same thing, but Xiao has 2 charges, which let him deal more damage because of them and generate more particles. Plus, his multipliers are substantially higher than Cyno, which is a real bummer because Cyno doesn't have the 2 charges that Xiao has. Plus, Xiao can do 2 dashes really quickly compared to Cyno, which even his base, like this base skill, like takes a small amount of time to activate. Well, it kind of like, like you would expect Cyno to at least deal lots of damage, at least much more closer to Xiao's damage than he does right now. I could also compare him to Ayaka, because Ayaka and Xiao share like same cooldowns and also really close on damage, is that Ayaka doesn't have 2 charges, but she has AoE. Well, you would guess that Cyno not having 2 charges and not having AoE would mean that he gets something else, most likely being more damage compared to them, but he doesn't. A bummer, but the skill generates a good amount of particles, and again, lowish cooldown, so hey, it's okay. It's a decent basic skill. And then we have his burst. This is the big meat of Cyno's kit. So, Cyno has a stance change burst, very very similar to Raiden and Child, but but compared to them, where Child has his daggers and Raiden has her sword, Cyno has his lightning claws. He kind of like gets possessed by some sort of ancient god or spirit, and he gets these huge lightning claws. He completely changes his normal attack combo. It's now these sort of like slashes with the claws, and then he like kind of like stretches out the claw at some point. Really reminds me of the Werehog from Sonic Unleashed, like too much. And yeah, he has like this sort of stretchy like attack at some point, and then his last attack, he like slams down a spear on a huge and does a damage and a huge AoE, pretty good damage as well. Which is really cool. I really like that. And you actually do get to use this normal attack combo a lot while using his burst. But yeah, he like slams the ground with a spear, and it's really cool to see. Plus, when you activate Cyno's skill within his burst, first, the cooldown gets reduced to 3 seconds, and 2, the skill completely changes. Instead of the forward thrust with the spear, Cyno now slams the ground with his 2 Electro claws and deals lots of damage. He deals more damage than the basic skill. So the burst enhances the skill in cooldown, less cooldown. Now it gets AoE and it deals a bit more damage. Not Xiao equal damage, but at least it deals more damage than that. Also, the base burst has a duration of 14 seconds, and when you activate your skill during the burst, you actually you increase the duration of the burst. I think around 2 seconds per cast or something, and you get a maximum of 18 seconds, I believe. So that's something that happens with Cyno's burst. Also, compared to, I believe, Raiden and especially Xiao, Cyno can actually generate particles during his burst. So until you're done using Cyno's burst, you will actually get some energy back. It does have an 80 energy cost, but again, because you can generate particles during it, the cost technically gets lowered. And that's the base kit. Let's go on to the Ascension Talent. Cyno's first Ascension Talent is that during the burst, you will see an effect on the screen, an eye effect. If you use your skill during this eye effect, during the time the eye effect is present, you will further increase Cyno's damage, and you will also summon these Dusk Eater bolts that deal a percentage of Cyno's attack as damage. I think it's around 150% of his attack as damage. These are like 3, I think they're like slashes on the ground that travel forwards. Like the name Dusk Eater Bolt, you might think that there's some sort of like orbs that like hit the enemies. But from what I've seen, I believe it's some sort of like 3 like slashes that travel on the ground and they hit enemies. So this is a big thing, of course. Timing the activation of your skill with this eye effect means that you get the maximum amount of damage that you can deal with the skill, and the Dusk Eater bolts add a good amount of damage to it. And then the second Ascension Talent is that for each point of Elemental Mastery that Cyno has, he gets a damage boost to his normal attacks and his Dusk Eater bolts during his burst. So this further incentivizes using Cyno's normal attacks compared to his charge attacks. He does some sort of like weird like slashing and running forwards with his charge attacks during his burst. You're not using them because it wastes time really, and this talent further increases the normal attack damage, so you really want to reach that end of the normal attack combo and use the spear attack. to like really push out the damage of that spear attack with this talent. And the Dusk Eater bolts get a damage boost, which is nice. Also, Cyno, whenever he activates his burst, and when he's in his burst form, he gains a 100 elemental mastery boost. So that's nice, you know, it helps this talent, and also helps without needing to really like search for elemental mastery from your artifact. So that's nice. And yeah, that's the kit. So it's a okay kit. It's really burst focused, of course. Everything is tied around his burst. The talents, the Ascension Talents are really interesting, especially that eye effect. You know, because the other one is really an elemental mastery scaling thing. We've seen other kinds of HP scaling, elemental mastery scaling effects like this one. But the eye effect is something really cool, I have to say. And it's pretty interesting and decent, deals a good amount of damage. I would like to mention, as you're watching the background footage, maybe, I put some Abyss background footage that I tried to use Cyno. I just tried to use him with some sort of really random team. I put Bennett, Cyno, Fischl, and Kazakha, kind of like a super buffing composition, but of course, it wasn't really easy to buff Cyno through Kazakha because he was infused with Pyro through Bennett's ultimate. But I just tried to use, you know, Thunder Soother. Maybe I tried to use Gilded Dreams because, you know, hey, if I'm not being buffed by Kazakha, maybe I can trigger Gilded Dreams at least through Kazakha's Pyro infusion, maybe proc Overload, something like that. Just trying Cyno out in the Abyss. Now, I want you to see, I want to mention, I put Cyno on floor 12 on the second half, because the second half has the new Primal Constructs right now, and it also has Asimon, the new boss. And I put Cyno and Fischl there because I'm like, yeah, these guys need Electro to be revealed, especially Asimon. And I would like to say that, holy fuck, is this boss broken? Not like overpowered broken, but just broken in programming or something. Because, first of all, the parts that it spawns need constant, they just need some sort of constant elemental application. And it seems apparently that my team, which should have some good constant application of elements, didn't do it. Especially, I was kind of disappointed at how Fischl really didn't do much against these parts. But the big thing is that even when I destroyed these parts, right, once you do that, the Asimon goes invisible and starts recovering, where you need to hit the main body with Electro or a Catalyze reaction. For some reason, this thing is way broken when it comes to detecting that it's been hit by Electro. I've hit it with Fischl while using her ultimate, where it usually hits enemies around when you cast Fischl's ultimate, which before, on the previous cycle of the Abyss, with the previous buff, it worked on my Huta team very well, but now when I used it, it didn't. And the big one is that I used Cyno's skill. It hit, I could see the damage numbers, but it didn't register. I needed to ult with Cyno in order to actually make the boss go into the weakened state, which is way, like, this shouldn't happen. One of my friends used Raiden in this chamber. They used a Tinari Raiden team as a Aggravate spread team, which is a decent combo. It's not perfect, but it's decent. And they would try to use Raiden's E on the main body. They could see the markers, like the arrows pointing down that the enemy is weakened, right? They could see the arrows, hit the skill, but it wouldn't trigger. The thing wouldn't trigger, and then after a while, it would actually go onto the weakened state. So it's absolutely busted. That's what I wanted to mention. That it completely ruined my experience against this thing with Cyno. So yeah, I hated that. I absolutely hated that. As for the Cyno stuff, right, like how did he perform in this Abyss? He did fine. In the earlier floors, as you're gonna see in the background footage, his burst was way too much. Like just Fischl, Bennett, and Kazakha dealt with the mobs finally, so nothing really interesting there. As for floor 11 and floor 12, he did well, but holy crap, sometimes when you just cannot dodge, or you just messed up the iframes for some reason or another, because Genshin's sprint system is really busted, and you cannot exactly see when you have iframes, you can easily just end up getting smacked around. And it happened a lot with Cyno, and it seriously hurts when that happens. Like, getting your combo broken is extremely annoying. So I absolutely cannot wait to maybe free my Zhongli, because I'm still using him in my Hu Tao team. Maybe get some sort of Dendro Shielder, that would be amazing. Maybe a more natural Electro Shielder compared to Beidou, because Beidou has constellations to shield. Again, maybe some sort of more natural shielder. Or maybe I'm gonna try Diona or Layla. Who knows? Because, yeah, shielding with Cyno, depending on the Abyss and the enemies that you're going up against, because I've used Cyno without a shield on like other domains like the Husk domain. With the dogs, I used Cyno there without a shielder, and he did perfectly fine. Like, there was no problem with staggering there. So, depending on your enemies, yeah, he might seriously need a shielder instead of just going with a healer, right? So be careful with that. And this is the parenthesis that I wanted to make because of the background footage. So let's continue on with a regular schedule. Let's move on to team compositions compared to artifacts first, compared to other reviews. Let's go to team compositions because these really matter. The big problem about Cyno is that burst duration. You really want to keep Cyno on the field to use that burst duration, but the problem is that we just don't have characters that have skills, burst, like abilities and buffs that last that long. That's the big problem about it. Like 95% of the cast just don't have abilities that last longer than 10 to 12 seconds. There are some outliers, but and they are good companions for Cyno, but again, this really limits the amount of characters that Cyno can use with his teams. And so for team compositions, there's 3 general team compositions. We will tackle each element and each character individually and see which characters really fit Cyno, but the 3 main compositions that Cyno runs are Mono Electro, where you have 2 Electro characters, most likely, it's Cyno and either Fischl or Beidou usually, and then you have somebody like Kazakha for the elemental damage buff, and then somebody like Zhongli or Bennett for just buffing. This is a super hyper carry Cyno composition. You have 2 Electros because you need the Electro Resonance to really reduce your ER requirements and have some really good Electro damage off the field. Again, usually Beidou and Fischl. You have Kazakha or Bennett or Zhongli, and again, a mix of buffers to just buff the electro damage or buff stats or reduce resistance, something like that, to just really buff the 2 electro characters' damage. That's the big thing about this team. This team uses like 1 artifact set we're gonna mention. There are some like artifact set restrictions on some of the team compositions. I'm gonna, fully go on those when we get the two artifacts. But yeah, this is like a team that I've tried out. It's decent. It's just buffing out Cyno's damage and the other electro characters' damage, and it works. Do you want to have Kazakha for the electro damage bonus? Do you want to have Zhongli for the shield, the electro shred? Do you want to have Bennett for the attack buff and the healing? Like, there's plenty of choices that actually do work. Like, yes, Bennett isn't crazy for his duration, but he's still Bennett. Zhongli is a really good fit because of his seal duration, and Kazakha also has a pretty good duration, but we'll go in depth when we reach the character. Cyno's second team is this sort of hyper bloom team. It's called Quick Bloom, and it is 2 Electros once again. The Electro Resonance is really important. Once again, Cyno, Fischl, and Beidou. Then you have the DMC, the Dendro main character, as a Dendro applier, and he is really the only fit Dendro character right now compared to Koli for this team and Cyno in general. And then you have somebody like Xingqiu for Hydro application. So it's a Hyper Bloom team. You have your Dendro character applying Dendro, you have your Electro characters proccing Quicken and Aggravate, and that's where the quick part comes in. And then you have a Hydro character, mainly Xingqiu, giving out the Hydro aura to produce the Bloom cores. This does eat the Quicken aura, but that's why it's called the Quick Bloom aura. You have the Quicken aura going on, you eat it up with Xingqiu and his Hydro application, spawning the Bloom cores, and then Cyno comes in and triggers Hyper Bloom and deals a good amount of Hyper Bloom damage. Here, Cyno runs an EM artifact stats because Hyper Bloom doesn't crit and doesn't benefit from electro damage. You could use, I guess, an EM electro damage EM if you don't have a 3 EM setup, or you just want to give some electro damage to Cyno just so that he does give out some damage compared to just focusing on Hyper Bloom, I would guess. But yeah, this team seems to have gone up a lot in damage because of the recent Abyss buff. So you know, your mileage may vary when you use this team outside of the current Abyss cycle, because again, there's a Hyper Bloom damage buff from what I know, so that could boost up the team. I've seen lots of people recommend this team, and there are like half and half people, where half the people do not mention the Abyss buff, and they're all like, oh, this is much better than an Aggravate team. And then there's half people who are like, yes, this seems to be better than an Aggravate team right now, but there is this Abyss buff, so that this could skewer things towards this team. So yeah, be careful of this team. I would guess that it still will perform without the Abyss buff, but it could be it could fall down substantially because you don't have this Abyss buff. But maybe when we get some sort of character, some sort of Dendro character or Electro character that buffs Hyper Bloom, maybe the team will get a boost back. The team will get a boost again. And the last team composition is Aggravate. This is 2 Electros, again, Cyno, Feshel, or Beidou, Dendro MC for now, and some sort of other character. Usually it's Zhongli, but some sort of other character that doesn't mess up the Quicken Aura, so no Hydro or Pyro characters here. So you're most likely thinking of either Anemo, Geo, or another Dendro maybe, and I don't think another Electro character, but it's mostly something like that. Maybe somebody with a low elemental application, somebody like Bennett, which will not really hurt your Quicken Aura. Maybe Cryo characters can fit in this team because they don't react with Dendro, and as such, if you have some sort of a good Cryo buffer, somebody like Diona that offers heals, good shields, and at C6 can offer an Elemental Mastery boost. She doesn't, Cryo doesn't react with Dendro, so you can bring her up as that 4th flex slot in these Aggravate teams. Heck, the new Layla character. Layla seems to be a really good shielder, so she might fit into these Aggravate teams. And until we get some sort of Dendro character that heals or shields, that flex slot will most likely be taken up by shielders or healers. So yeah, the Aggravate team seems to be the best team for Cyno, as it is Aggravate. It's a really good, Aggravate is a seriously good reaction, but unfortunately your Dendro choices for that team are absolutely limited to the Dendro MC. Nahida seems to be a really good partner here, but we'll see her once we get into the Dendro characters, which let's begin, I guess. These are the 3 compositions, the main compositions of Cyno teams. Let's dive into specific characters and see how they work with Cyno. Let's start off with Electro. I already mentioned Feshel and Beidou. They are the best. Feshel especially on Aggravate, because her Aggravate damage is really, really good. And that's it. Most of the time, though, people use Beidou because they really like her stagger resistance through her ultimate. She has a shield. At C6, she has Electro Res Shred. So many people pick Beidou over Feshel. She might need a bit of ER. You might need to pay a bit more attention into Beidou's ER compared to Feshel. With Feshel and Cyno, ER is really thrown out of the window. Some ER stats are useful, of course. With Beidou, you might need to pay a bit more attention into her ER in order to be comfortable with her stuff. For Feshel, she can also carry Elegy for the End, which is a seriously huge boost for Cyno, because it gives both DM and attack, and it seriously helps Cyno. So yeah, Feshel and Cyno, really good pair, especially with Elegy for the End. But Beidou can also carry Wolf's Gravestone, which is a good team attack buff. So hey, that might be a good option if you have, Beidou and User in a Cyno team. But other than that, your choices really fall down, because there really isn't much compared to Feshel and Beidou for how useful they are in a Cyno composition. Cookie Shinobu does fit. If you really need a healer on your team, Cookie can definitely be there. She has decent Electro application. She has her heals. She doesn't deal as much damage as Beidou and Feshel, unfortunately, but her skill does get a good uptime with her C2, so you might want to use that compared to Beidou and Fischl. Again, especially if you don't have a healer, if you're not using Zhongli, if you're not using Bennett on a team with Cyno, you might want to use Cookie. In the Hyperbloom team, right, I didn't exactly mention a healer, right? I mentioned Xingqiu because his stagger resistance is amazing, plus he has micro heals, but maybe you're just, it's just isn't enough. He also has damage reduction, but maybe it's just not enough in that Hyperbloom team and you get beat up. So maybe you want to use Cookie in order to be like, hey, now my heals are really good. I still have Xingqiu to help me out, but now I also have Cookie for some really good heals. So she can fit. And other than that, you really don't have many options. Lisa isn't really useful. She also has a crazy energy recharge need, so she's not good. Yaemiko is okay. She has pretty good damage for sure, but she also has really big ER needs if you're not playing it with Raiden, so she might not fit into a Cyno composition. Raiden is not good because while she has good off-field electro application, and she of course completely trivializes energy recharge needs, well, the burst damage that she offers doesn't matter for Cyno because it doesn't deal burst damage. She deals normal attack damage and elemental skill damage, so she doesn't matter. So Raiden doesn't really help with Cyno, and also you will need to switch to Raiden at some point because you do not want to waste a fully charged Raiden burst. And then other than that, you just don't have any characters that fit. Kojo Sara doesn't fit because she's very clunky and she really doesn't have the duration to help Cyno. Dori also doesn't really do anything for Cyno, so she's a skip. So yeah, those are the Electro characters that fit with Cyno. It's mainly Fischl and Beidou, really. For Dendro, as I mentioned, really the Dendro MC is your only option right now, with Nahida being definitely being better than DMC in both Aggravate and Quick Bloom teams, I would guess. But I've seen arguments against Nahida, and for my opinion, I would guess that Nahida will definitely help the Aggravate teams, but I don't believe that she will make or break the Aggravate teams. She will help them. She will help them a lot, I would guess, compared to DMC, but I still think that we're looking for some sort of other Dendro character, some sort of super dedicated Dendro support, shielder, healer, some sort of interesting buffer that will compared to Nahida and a Cyno team will outperform her. Maybe some sort of Dendro character that has Dendro application that follows Cyno, follows the active character around. The argument that most people have against Nahida in a Cyno composition is that if you go, you mark enemies with Nahida's skill. If those enemies die, but Cyno hasn't used up a lot of his burst duration, you're gonna need to switch off to apply Dendro, which you don't want to do. With the DMC, you have the flower down on the ground. You don't need to reapply Dendro. It applies Dendro on its own. With Nahida, she needs to apply Dendro. If the enemies die, she needs to reapply it. That's the main counter argument. So in floors, in chambers in the abyss, where you have lots of mobs spawning in different waves, Nahida will be substantially worse than DMC. But in floors and chambers where you have 2 or 3 enemies in one wave, something like Kairagis or something like Ruin enemies where there's just one wave of them, or maybe bosses, of course, or like the Baptismal Vishaps that usually just have one wave, Nahida will be really, really better than DMC. But again, I don't believe she's gonna be the Dendro that Cyno really, really is looking for. We still need to wait. Heck, we have Yao Yao, Baizu, Al Haytham, and Kave. These 4 guys, they're coming out in a really long time, unfortunately, but we need to see what these guys will offer and how they will fit with Cyno. Listen here. If you're not going to use Nahida other than a Cyno team, do not pull for her. Unless you really like the character and her abilities, do not pull her if you want to use her as a meta character for Cyno. Keep your DMC and wait to see how these other Dendro characters that are upcoming will fit in Cyno teams. It's not worth it to pull Nahida just for Cyno. That's what I'm doing. I don't like the character at all. I don't like her skills at all. I want to use her just for Cyno really, but I don't like her and I won't go for her. I will wait for these other characters and see what they do. And also, Nahida being an Archon means that she actually will get more reruns than you think. So even if you skip her now and the other Dendro characters just don't end up being that good with Cyno, you will get a chance to get her sooner than other characters. So yeah, because she's an Archon, she does get this privilege. So don't pull for her right now if she is only going to be in a Cyno team. If you wanna, if you're gonna use her in some other Dendro teams, definitely get her. She's gonna be really good with them. But that's our Dendro. Not that many options, but what can we do? As for Pyro, Bennett and Toma are really your only characters, because other Pyro characters aren't really supports. And Bennett is Bennett, as I said. Attack buff, heals. He's Bennett. Toma is really just for the shield, and C6 he offers a bit of a normal attack damage buff. That's really it for Toma. You don't use him in a quick bloom team because he triggers Burgeon. Also, you just don't have any slots there to use him. You can just use him in like a mono Electro composition, I guess, because he has minimal Pyro application there. Be careful not to swirl Pyro if you're using him with somebody like Kazakha. And in Aggravate, he can definitely be dangerous as he will eat up the Dendro aura, but I think he's still fine in those Aggravate teams. But those are really your only Pyro characters that you can use. As for Cryo, the real only ones are Diona and Layla. I already mentioned them because they are really good shielders and they do not react with Dendro at all for those quick bloom or Aggravate teams especially. They don't eat up the quicken aura and they have good shields, and that's really it. I guess you could also use Chi-Chi if you really want some really beefed up heals, as she also doesn't really impact with the quicken aura, and that's it. You can also use the Ocean Hued Clam on Chi-Chi if you want some off-field damage, I guess, with her. And that's about it. Other characters just don't fit, because I guess you could use Kaeya as a sub DPS, but he really isn't, you shouldn't be using him here in these Aggravate teams. That's it for Cryo. It's okay, you're not using Cryo for Superconduct on Cyno, that's definitely a thing, but they have, but Cryo utility supports like Diona and Layla definitely fit in these comps just as utility. For Hydro, we have Xingqiu, as I already mentioned. He is really nice and useful in those quick bloom teams, and even on those mono Electro teams, because Electro Charged kind of still counts as mono Electro, to be honest, and Xingqiu's off-field sub DPS, stagger resistance especially, and damage reduction are super welcome on Cyno, and he's a really good unit. Other than that, Yellen is very similar to Xingqiu. She just doesn't offer, of course, the heals. The stagger resistance is a really big up for Xingqiu. She can carry Elegy for the end, which is a up, and she has her damage boost, but seriously, the stagger resistance and damage reduction that Xingqiu gives are really big ups compared to Yellen. So I think he kind of goes, he's a much better option than Yellen. And then lastly is Ayato, believe it or not. Ayato has decent off-field Hydro application. He has a normal attack damage buff on his burst, but he is reduced to a burst bot in these kind of Cyno support teams. So yeah, I tried him out. He was okay, sure, but I like my Ayato. I want to use him on the field, and it's kind of bad to have him off the field. So yeah, while you can use Ayato with Cyno, he's not optimal. He's kind of a last resort. Other than that, you don't have any other Hydro characters, unfortunately. Barbara doesn't have the Hydro application. Mona and Kokomi don't have the Hydro application. Kokomi has low duration, similar to Mona, but Kokomi also has low AoE, similar to Mona. So, unfortunately, they don't fit Cyno that much. Not other than that, Candace, Nilu and the likes, like Child of course, they don't fit Cyno at all. Then we move on to Geo and Anemo. Geo, I already mentioned Zhongli, and it's really only Zhongli. The shield, he's Zhongli. He has his shield, his resistance shred, his shield lasts 20 seconds, which is a really big plus, and that's about it, he's Zhongli. Albedo is okay as a sub DPS, but he really doesn't fit in any of the teams. The good thing about Geo, of course, is that they don't eat up the Dendro Aura because they don't react with it, so that's a good thing actually, and that's why Zhongli fits a lot in the Aggravate teams. He doesn't eat up the Quicken Aura and offers the resistance shred. And the shield, of course. So yeah, it's mainly Zhongli and very, 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 very slightly Albedo. Yunjin really doesn't like do it with her normal attack damage buff, so she's out of the picture. Albedo just has really good sub DPS, sub off-field DPS damage, so you know that's why I can see people using Albedo, but Zhongli is the big one. And as for Anemo, the main trio is really the only useful characters: Venti, Kazakha, and Sucrose. Sucrose I can see being used in maybe Aggravate teams once we get a Dendro healer or shielder to boost Aggravate and spread the damage. But mainly I can also see her in Quick Bloom teams, but again you don't really have any slots available in Quick Bloom teams to put Sucrose, so she really falls down. Venti, I think Cyno actually does hit enemies inside of Venti's vortex, so that's good. But you're gonna need to see where you can put Venti. Again, maybe once we get a Dendro healer or shielder, you could put Venti in Aggravate teams. That would be really good. I can also see Venti in Quick Bloom teams if you have some good ER, because Venti will group up the Bloom core, so they're easier to hit. But yeah, she can also carry Elegy for the end, which is a good buff. But the best character is Kazakha. Kazakha and his Electro damage buff is seriously good. All of these characters, of course, use Viridescent, but because they cannot apply Viridescent's buff off the field, and Viridescent doesn't have that crazy of a duration, you don't really get to use all of Viridescent fully with Cyno. But Kazakha, the good thing about Kazakha and his buff is that with how his burst works and his effect, his buff, it can actually drag out a lot into Cyno's burst. Kazakha's buff, of course, has around a 6 to 8 seconds duration, and his burst also has an 8 seconds duration, which means that the maximum amount of duration that Kazakha's buff can have is 16 seconds, which is really good because you're gonna switch off of Cyno before his burst ends anyway, so you most likely will get the full buff from Kazakha. You know, the way it works is that Kazakha infuses his burst with Electro, and then whenever the burst ticks, Kazakha's buff is refreshed. So until the burst ends, which is 8 seconds, you constantly refresh the duration, and you know, the 8 seconds, the last tick comes in, and that's when the last duration, you know, gets refreshed, and you get those 8 seconds. And again, it carries out into Cyno's burst duration, so that's good. But this also matters with Zhongli and other characters as well. These characters like Kazakha and Zhongli might have abilities that last 16, 18, 20 seconds. But your team rotations matter a lot here. If you switch off of Cyno, right, you're done with your rotation with Cyno, and you switch to Zhongli and you use his shield, by the time you go to Cyno, because you rotate through your other characters, by the time you reach Cyno, that shield's duration might fall into 15, 14 or less seconds. So you might actually not get to use it properly. It might end during, you know, close to the end of your rotation. Same with Kazakha. If you use Kazakha's burst and then you switch off to Zhongli to refresh the shield or some other characters, the burst and the buff might end around like 10 seconds into Cyno's burst. So you need to look into your rotations to, you know, like make the, like, see how they work, see how you need to switch up your characters, and when you need to activate each character's skill so that you get the maximum amount into Cyno's burst. As for Cyno himself, As I mentioned, you are most likely will not, you're not gonna use the full 20 to like 18 to 20 seconds of Cyno's burst. From my experience using Cyno, 2 to 3 activations of the eye is when you are going to switch off from Cyno. Most likely 3. So, you use Cyno's burst, you see one activation, you skill. You see a second activation, you skill. There, you might want to do a normal attack string and like switch off, or wait for the third eye activation, use it, and then switch immediately off. Maybe do 1 or 2 normal attacks, but you're out. Most likely, buffs will end by the time the third activation comes in, and you're out. And that's it for Cyno's team compositions and rotations. Pay attention to them. You're gonna need to try him out, you're gonna need to practice and see how each of these compositions that you have, because there can be a few variations of them, you're gonna need to see how you're gonna work with them. That is the really big point that hurts Cyno's teams. Nevertheless, that's it for team compositions. It's a big one because, yeah, until we get that perfect Dendro for Cyno, that most likely heals, shields, has a sort of different Dendro application compared to Nahida, Cyno will definitely sit in a weird spot. Now, that doesn't mean that Cyno will not be able to, like, finish the Abyss. Since we're not getting any sort of endgame content compared to the Abyss, except for the Abyss, oh boy, that article was ass. Since we're not getting any sort of different endgame content, Cyno nicely does well in the Abyss. You will easily do the Abyss with all of these 3 team compositions and a variety of characters. So while Cyno again will do well in this content, he will not completely shine compared to other teams in the Abyss. That's why we're waiting for that Dendro character to come in, for Cyno to truly shine and to be like, oh, this character in this team was worth building and making. That's the thing. Will Cyno's teams do the Abyss and complete it? Yes. Will they 36 star it? Yes. But again, for Cyno to really shine, we'll need to wait for that Dendro. Maybe if we had some sort of other end game content, I would have said that it's more important for that Dendro character to come, but oh boy, they are doing the dumb thing, not making some sort of other than end game content, but that's a completely different discussion. Let's move on to artifact sets then. I said that they tie up with team compositions, so Cyno has 3 to 4 artifact sets that he can use. Those are Thundering Fury, Gilded Dreams, Thunder Soother, and Gladiator. Gladiator is usually the worst out of the 4, but with some super good substats, it can deal a good amount of damage. But the big 3, again, are Thundering Fury, Gilded Dreams, and Thunder Soother. The thing that ties up into the team compositions is mainly Thunder Soother, and the other is mainly the Mono Electro composition. Because in the Mono Electro composition, Cyno cannot trigger elemental reactions, so you cannot use Thundering Fury or Gilded Dreams there, as they want elemental reactions to work. So in those Mono Electro compositions, Thunder Soother will severely out damage these the other artifact sets. So if you're planning on using Cyno in a Mono Electro compositions for some time, use him with Thunder Soother and you'll see some good results there. I tried him out and I really liked Thunder Soother on him. The other artifact sets, Thundering Fury and Gilded Dreams. Gilded Dreams works both in the Quick Bloom team and Aggravate team. And as for Thundering Fury, from my experience, the only time I've seen it work really, really well is in Aggravate. The thing about Thundering Fury is that it breaks the normal way that you play Cyno. Usually with Cyno, you start off your burst, you use your skill immediately because something that I forgot to mention is that when you use Cyno's burst, it reduces the cooldown of the skill. Like even if the skill was on cooldown, it will reduce it. So that means that when you use your burst, you can immediately use a skill and still be on time for the eye activation. With Thundering Fury, it works a bit differently. Because of Thundering Fury's cooldown reduction, in between I activations, you are able to fit another E, another skill activation. So the way it works is that you use your you activate the effect, the I effect with your skill. You proc a reaction and you get a cooldown reduction. You use a skill, you proc Thundering Fury again, and by the time that happens, another I appears and you're still able to use your skill. It basically kind of doubles the amount of skills you use with Cyno. It doesn't like reduce or increase the time you're gonna use Cyno's burst. You're still gonna switch him off on that third eye activation, but it really bumps up Cyno's damage. It gives Electro damage bonus, of course, and it ups Aggravate damage. But again, from my experience, I tried to use Thundering Fury with Electro charged, but I couldn't get Thundering Fury to work consistently. I could get Thundering Fury procs and reduce Cyno's cooldown, but I couldn't do it consistently, and it would completely mess up the eye activations. As such, Thundering Fury really only works on Aggravate because of the special way that Aggravate works, where only the Electro character can proc it compared to Electro Charged, where both your Hydro character and the Electro character can proc Electro Charged and steal the Thundering Fury proc. That doesn't happen with Aggravate because of how Quicken works. As such, Thundering Fury is only recommended on those Aggravate teams. As for Gilded, it works both on Quick Bloom and Aggravate because it only needs some. It doesn't need consistent activation of a skill, of a reaction. It just needs a reaction every now and then. As such, even on Electro Charged, even on those Quick Bloom teams, and even on those Aggravate teams, Gilded Dreams works. So the easy one is Gilded Dreams. On Aggravate, you can also use Thunder Soother because again of how Quicken works. You still apply Electro on an enemy, and the enemy does still keep Electro on them. So Thunder Soother still works on Aggravate. So depending on your substats, any of the three will work. Thundering Fury severely surpasses these other sets in Aggravate, but you can still use Thunder Soother and Gilded. It depends on your weapon, actually. It depends a lot on your weapon. Most of the time, again, Thundering Fury farly surpasses these other sets if you can consistently get those Thundering Fury procs. If you want an easier time, Thunder Soother is usually the easy option and the best option depending on the weapon, while Gilded Dreams is the best option if you're using White Tassel and Cyno's own weapon. Those are the two exceptions for Gilded Dreams being really better on Aggravates, like specifically Aggravate. That's the only time that Gilded Dreams is better than Thunder Soother. Usually, Thunder Soother on the same substats deals more damage on all of the other weapons. If your Gilded Dreams is very better, has much better substats than your Thunder Soother, then it makes sense to use Gilded Dreams. You will get more damage there. That's that for your artifact set. For stats, Electro damage and crit on your Goblet and Circlet respectively is what you're gonna go for. Always for Quick Bloom, again I've seen EM on main stats with some EM Electro EM being a recommendation. As for your Sands though, in Aggravate, Quick Bloom and Mono Electro teams, there's a fight between EM and Attack Sands. For Mono Electro, of course, you're gonna run Attack Sands because in Mono Electro you cannot use an EM Sands, right? Because you're not buffing Aggravate, you're not buffing any reactions damage there, so it's better to use an Attack Sands. Except if you have Cyno's weapon. If you have Cyno's weapon, no matter the team composition, you're using an EM Sands. That's a big one. That's an important one. But if you're using any other weapon, you're not going to use an EM Sands on Mono Electro because there's no reactions to proc there. Attack is more important. But for Quick Bloom, and especially Aggravate, most of the time, an EM Sands is better. On the same substats, from the calculations that I've seen, EM out damages an Attack Sands. If your Attack Sands has better substats than an EM1, it does depend a bit on the weapon. High base attack weapons like the Jade Spear, like the attack Sans more, and something like the Staff of Homa, like the attack Sans more. And again, if it has better substats. But most of the time, an EM Sans is better, especially with White Tassel and especially with Cyno's own weapon. With Cyno's own weapon, EM is an absolute must there. So yeah, depending on the subset of your Sans, and depending a bit on the weapon, you might need to fight, for that attack or EM Sans. But that's about it. As for substats, a bit of ER is nice. Maybe you're gonna grab that from, one of your artifact pieces, maybe your flower or your feather. The big one, of course, is crit, and EM and attack are pretty equal. Pretty equal on the substats, even with Cyno's own weapon. And I guess speaking of weapons, let's go on those weapons. So, for Cyno, we have an exception here. The White Tassel that I've mentioned is a 3-star weapon that you can get from chests in Liu, I think precious chests. You cannot get it from the gacha system, so you might want to be careful and lock an R5 White Tassel. But White Tassel is substantially good on Cyno. It outperforms basically every other 4-star, even if those 4 stars are R5. An R5 White Tassel is an amazing weapon on Cyno. Because Cyno has a good EM scaling, the low base attack of a 3-star weapon doesn't matter that much. The White Tassel gives crit rate and has a good normal attack damage boost. So it really buffs up Cyno. Cyno and weapons, the main thing that Cyno wants in general buffs is damage buffs or crit stats, which crit stats will generally buff your damage. He doesn't care all that much for just EM or just attack or just some sort of stat boost. Damage buffs really go well with Cyno. That's why Gladiator and Thunderstooter do so well, because they're general damage buffs. But Thundering Fury and Gilded Dream still do well. But yeah, because White Tassel is so good on Cyno, I basically do not recommend any 4-star on him if you have an R5 White Tassel. It's a 3-star, which means it uses less resources, which is a big thing. It's an okay, good thing. But again, it far out damages any other 4-star, except for Deathmatch. Deathmatch, the Battle Pass weapon, is basically on par with the White Tassel. On R1, Deathmatch does deal a bit less damage than the White Tassel. So if you're gonna buy the Battle Pass just for an R1 Deathmatch, I would suggest just keeping your money and giving Cyno an R5 White Tassel. If you don't have an R5 White Tassel, I would easily recommend a Deathmatch on him. A high refinement Deathmatch does deal more damage than a White Tassel, so you can easily use that on him. But every other 4-star is far outclassed by the White Tassel, no matter what it is. Dragon's Bane, Prototype Star Glitter, the Black Cliff Pole even. No, none of these. Lithic Spear, anything. Just anything doesn't do as much damage. The Missive Wind Spear that we got with the event, absolutely not compared to the White Tassel and the Deathmatch. They are far better. Heck, the Deathmatch and White Tassel outperform 5-star weapons. And speaking of those, let's look at 5-star weapons. The ones that I don't recommend that get outclassed by White Tassel is Calamity Queller and Vortex Vanquisher. As you can guess if you see those weapons, they are basically just attack stat sticks. And because I just said Cyno likes damage bonuses more, they fall behind compared to White Tassel and Deathmatch, because at least the Deathmatch, that doesn't have a damage boost, has crit rate, which is a general damage boost. It's an indirect damage boost, but it is a better damage boost than just attack. Don't get me wrong, Vortex Vanquisher and Calamity Queller still do a good amount of damage, especially Vortex Vanquisher if you're shielded, but if you don't have a White Tassel, I could see you using those. But if you have a White Tassel, it's better to give that to Cyno. If you just want to have a 5-star weapon on him, I could see you using them. But again, they deal less damage than a White Tassel. Surprisingly, Skyward Spine is actually kind of decent. The ER is like, it's an ER. But it does have a high base attack. It gives a very slight amount of crit rate, which is nice. But believe it or not, the attack speed that the Skyward Spine gives is an interesting point that actually kind of boosts it up in the rankings. It doesn't deal as much damage as a deathmatch or a white tassel, but if you don't have a white tassel, or if you have one and you wanna say, I have a 5-star weapon on my Cyno, and you don't have a deathmatch, and maybe you have a refined Skyward Spine because you just got it from the normal banner or from the weapons banner if you lost the 50-50, I could see a high refinement Skyward Spine on Cyno doing a good amount of damage, and then you can say proudly, I have a 5-star weapon on my Cyno instead of a 3-star white tassel. But Skyward Spine is similar to Vortex Funguser and Calamity Queller on damage, but I think it does outdamage them. So yeah, Skyward Spine is an interesting one, but it falls behind. Engulfing Lightning isn't for Cyno, I'm not gonna talk about it. And then we get to the big three. Staff of Homa, the Jade Spear, and the Staff of Scarlet Sands, which is Cyno's weapon. Staff of Homa is the worst of them, but it is the best of everything else. So if you have a spare Staff of Homa, you can easily use it on Cyno. It deals a good amount of damage. It falls behind the other two, the other big three, but compared to everything else, it's better. Jade Spear is substantially better than Homa. Well, it's a good deal, I wouldn't say substantially. It's a good deal better than Homa, and it's the second best weapon for Cyno. If you can guess, it's because it has crit rate, it has a good base attack, it has some attack, but the big one is that it has a damage boost. When you have the max stacks with Jade Spear, you gain a damage boost, and that really boosts it up compared to Homa, because both Homa and the Jade Spear both give a crit stat, and then they are basically attack stat sticks. But because of that freaking damage boost, the Jade Spear goes forwards compared to Homa. If the Jade Spear didn't have that damage boost, it would have been similar to Homa in the rankings. And last but not least is the Staff of Scarlet Sands. Cyno's weapon. It far outdamages everything else. I'm not even joking. Even an R5 Jade Spear doesn't stand a chance compared to an R1 Scarlet Sands. It is that much better. It has similar stats to a Jade Cutter, which means lowish base attack for a 5-star, but basically 50% crit rate, and then the effect is that you gain a percentage of your elemental mastery into attack, and when you hit enemies with your skill, you further increase that elemental mastery to attack conversion. It is insane. You gain the best of both worlds here, where you gain both attack and where giving Cyno elemental mastery will give you attack, compared to Staff of Homa or Jade Spear, where you just have attack there. Right, so yeah, like it far outdamages everything else. If you got it, you got it. That's nice. I got it. I was lucky. But it's substantially better than the Jade Spear or Homa. But if you have a Jade Spear, I wouldn't recommend going for the Staff of Scarlet Sands. Do not give your primos or your money to the scam banner that is the weapon banner. Keep Cyno with a Jade Spear. You're still gonna be doing a really good amount of damage with a Jade Spear. If you have the funds and you have the luck, you can go for a Scarlet Sands again, but not recommended if you have a Staff of Homa or a Jade Spear especially. But if you wanna go and hunt for it, it is a far better weapon than anything else. And that's it. That's Cyno. I have to say that, in my opinion, Cyno is definitely a character that needs a good amount of investment. Of course, he needs level 90, but I say that he needs some good artifacts, some good stats. He needs high talent levels. He needs high talent levels on his skill and burst, and he needs a good weapon to really shine. But that's the thing. He needs good investment to shine. He doesn't need all of that to clear the Abyss. But again, because right now the Abyss is the only end game, he's fine with an okay investment. But if you really want to see a difference compared to other units that you have and other teams that you've built, you're gonna need some good investment on him. But I would guess But once we get that sweet Dendro, or maybe some sort of really good Electro character that will fit a Cyno team, but I would guess mostly we're looking for that Dendro character, Cyno sits in this weird position where he's just okay. Is he a character that I would say really is a good go for? No. If you're looking for an interesting character with an interesting gameplay, sure, I could definitely see him. I could definitely see recommended him. But not so much as a meta character. We're gonna need to wait for that Dendro character that really boosts him up. But that's it. That's Cyno. Next up is gonna be Albedo, and I won't need that much time to spend with Albedo to make a video for him, so he's gonna be soon. But yeah, that's it for Cyno. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a like, subscribe to help me out and help the channel out, please. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.